We're going to chat today about, within the context of what we've been looking at for the last month, about freedom in homeschooling and how eclectic home education gives parents a greater variety of choice, able to tailor make their children's educations. And we read a post that Shirani put up on Facebook about 2 weeks ago. It was really thought-provoking. She entitled it "The Wolf at the Door." And we realized that it fits in so beautifully with our theme of freedom, homeschooling in an eclectic style, because it covered a threat to the freedom that we have as homeschool parents. So it's a little bit more serious this week than normal, and Shirley and I are just having a good old chin wag. But thank you for joining us, Shirani. And I thought it would be great if you could just start off giving us the basics of what you said in that post and what the greatest threat to homeschool freedom is currently in the country.
Thanks, Wendy. I think we have a problem with assumptions. We tend to assume a lot of things about how things work in our country and how we are supposed to react to how things are working in our country, because each country has what they call a social contract with the government. And in that social contract, we say we will pay taxes, and in return, the government will provide services and they will protect us. And I think especially after the COVID palaver, I don't know how else to explain it, just a palaver.
Yeah.
Some people are asking serious questions about, is this contract still fair? Because it seems like we are doing more and the government is giving less. We're paying more taxes, we're getting less services from the government, and the government seems to be demanding more of the citizens. And people are wondering why and what is behind this, and are they really acting in the best interests of the country? And I've been following certain researchers and libertarian think tanks, and I've been listening to what they've been saying, and it's raised questions in my mind. And that is why I actually wrote the article, especially because in our homeschooling community, we seem to be polarized into two thought patterns. The one thought pattern is that in our interaction with the DBE, we need to be as compliant as possible. We need to capitulate to what they want. And if we do that, when it comes to laws and precedents being set, they will in return consider us more kindly and be more lenient towards us. There's another camp that think, after what they've seen during the COVID pandemic and how autocratic and how prescriptive the government has been, and sometimes the things that have been prescribed have not made sense, like what you can buy during the pandemic, and you know, some of the rules just didn't add up, and a lot of corruption was coming out, and people are now wondering, you know, can I really trust these people on the other side of the table? And I think that's a very important question to ask, because it's our children's futures that are on the line. We have to know who we're dealing with. Do they have the same goals as we have for our children? What is their agenda? What is their worldview? Is it the same as ours? Because this is going to influence our children's futures. And it's something as parents we need to ask, because we are responsible for our children.
Yeah, definitely. Shirley, you shared an analogy just now about the overreaching arm of the law with an analogy about blue car seats. Do you want to share that? Because I think that ties in quite nicely with what Shirani said.
It's an example that I often use, because as citizens, most of us are law-abiding and we wish to be law-abiding citizens. And yet, apparently over 90% of homeschoolers do not register for homeschooling, even though the SA Schools Act says that a child must be registered for home education. And so you have to ask why. Why do people who are, you know, in all other respects law-abiding, why are they not registering? And the reason that most parents have given that, as I've observed this over the years, is that when it comes, we are obligated to act in the best interest of our children. And so there's a balancing act. And what happens with the officials of the Department of Education is sometimes the requirements of the policy, or sometimes just the actual requirements of the different provinces, the forms that they ask you to fill in and the things that they ask you to submit are actually not prescribed by the law. So a policy is there to guide how officials implement the law, but the policy is not the law. So I have this policeman analogy to help put it into like something I can visualize. A policeman is an official and we must obey them because they are representatives of the government. But if a traffic cop comes into your yard where your car is parked and says you must use blue seat covers on your seat and you must have your car roadworthy twice a year, that's not prescribed by law. He doesn't have the authority to make you do that. And so you can tell him, no, I'm not going to obey you, even though you are an official of the government. That's not, you've gone beyond the boundaries of your authority. And so similarly, some of the requirements set by education officials are beyond the boundaries of their authority. And if it infringes on your children's, what's in your children's best interests, then by law, you're actually obligated to not do that because your children's best interest is, according to the Constitution, the highest priority. And so when I've looked at things like the policy, it seems to prefer a schoolish way of home education. And there's a lot of homeschoolers who follow other styles. So that to me is like the blue seat belts. I want red sorry, not seat belts, seat covers. I want red, he's saying blue. So no, you know, the policy says we must assess our children after every third year or something like that. And that's to me like a traffic cop saying I must have my car roadworthy twice a year. That's not what's legally prescribed. So it's not in the best interest of my vehicle or my children, then no, you know, so that was just a way I simplified it so that a person could understand why you might not do what some government official says.
So the interesting thing that I'm hearing from both what you and Shirani have said, it goes to whose children are these? You know, I think that the government would like to see our children as state sort of wealth, because obviously we're raising the next income earners and taxpayers and doctors and all that sort of thing. So how about, Shirani, you first answer that. Whose children are these?
Yes, that's a very good question. It would depend on your point of view, your ideology. From a democratic point of view, the children belong to the parents. We are responsible for them. Government interference should be at a minimum. But from a different point of view, maybe from a view that is maybe more socialist, it would be that the government sees the children as part of their wealth. The government needs to be in charge of what's going on all over the country. So they should be in charge of healthcare. They should be in charge of education. They should be in charge of as many things as they can. Whereas in a democratic capitalist country, you would say most of these things should be in private hands, and the government should stick to protecting and serving, you know, just rewarding the people who are doing right, punish people who are doing wrong, and leaving the rest to the people to sort out for themselves. I think also because of our history in South Africa, we have been used to having a government who's very prescriptive. And we've also been brought up in that kind of mindset that the government knows best and the government will give you what you need and you can trust the government and don't think for yourself. Just do what the government says because that's right. And we need to wonder, you know, we need to start thinking, yes, that would be lovely and it would be nice. But again, do we have the same goals as the government? I actually like a quote that Ronald Reagan said. He said, the most terrifying words in the English language is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And I thought that's coming from you know, a US president. That says a lot, you know. Also, you've got to think, what are the aims? If the government considers the children to be their responsibility, what are they going to do with our children? And there's been some research done recently, which is rather shocking. And you might want to sit down for this. But the Center for Risk Analysis has run polls to find out what does the ANC supporter base look like at the moment, especially after COVID, because they are not super popular. And how would this influence them in the next election? And through the research they did, they found out that the lower income, poorer educated people have got a higher probability of voting for the ANC, whereas the high educated, high income people who even used to be pro-ANC are now preferring to put their vote somewhere else. So one would think, if they are aware of this, is it in their interest to have well-educated people in the country? You know, if they think about their long-term plan. And then if you think about a statement that Angie Mochecha actually tweeted out a couple of years ago, and I quote, she said, "It is my duty to help educate the people of South Africa on how to vote for the ANC." Oh. So that puts a whole new spin on it, you know. So your children being educated by the state, is whose best interest is that? Is it in your child's best interest, or is it in the state's best interest? Mm. So we need to think about that, and we need to take responsibility for that. I think a lot of parents are frustrated, especially with COVID, because schools have been open, schools have been closed. You know, people have been getting PPC equipment. The schools haven't been getting PPC equipment. The private schools seem to be okay because the government hasn't been so involved with their running. They've just given them broad outlines that they've managed to work under, and they've actually done quite a good job, as we've seen from the matric pass rates. A lot of the private schools have had fantastic pass rates, even though COVID was a problem. But unfortunately, the government schools have not been as successful. So, yes.
It's definitely food for thought. I was just thinking that a lot of the discussion can raise fear in a parent. And you get onto a forum like Facebook, and a lot of the parents who are following CAP's curriculum and who have attempted to, because a lot of the registrations just don't happen, even if the parents send in the forms, there seems to be just an undercurrent of fear about fear of inspection, fear of keeping up, fear of not choosing the right curriculum, if my child falls behind, if they don't get an assessment, etc. And I've always felt that in a place where there is fear, that is saying that there is something wrong. That's our warning system. I'm afraid something is wrong. And a parent who is coming and saying that I've walked away from CAPS. I chose to leave school, to come home and be free with my children, to create and tailor-make an education for them, what they require. And then they go onto a forum and they see all of this fear-based talk. What can we say today as moms who've homeschooled for 20 years? You know, Shirani, you've got 1 left, Shirley's got 2 left to go through the system, I'm done. What can we say to these moms that are coming in and they're looking at things like the Bella Bill, which maybe we can touch on just now, like CAPS curriculum, like these polarized groups that you've mentioned, the ones that are for the government and involvement in home education, and others that are saying don't, like Shirley with the red car seat, blue car seat. What can we say to these young parents? Maybe Shirley, you want to start first, and then Shirani can add in afterwards. You're muted.
Sorry, there was background noise in my house, so I muted for a few minutes while Shirani was talking. I think a person has to realize what are your goals, and that as parents, you need to stand up to protect your children's best interests, and you need to realize that you're not alone. You know, I think when we think that we're alone, then we think that wolf's at our door and they're going to get us. But when you realize that we are a community of hundreds of thousands of people in South Africa, and many of us are like-minded, we can stand together, we create awareness, We do have a legal defense association, which we recommend joining, just to give you that peace of mind that somebody's got my back and I will have advice and, you know, legal expertise at my disposal if I ever need it. And the chances are that you probably won't, but it gives you that peace of mind. And then to become better informed about the law and your rights and responsibilities towards your children. Because when you're informed, then you know that there are laws. There are other laws like the Children's Act and the Constitution that are there to back you as well. And I think that alleviates a lot of the fear. You now feel empowered. And when you know your rights and responsibilities, when somebody confronts you, like that policeman coming into the yard, you know that you've got every right to say, wait at the gate. I don't have to let you in, and you can get legal advice before you engage further. And then you can keep yourself safe and your family safe.
Yeah, great advice. And Shirani, what would you say?
I've been hearing a phrase quite a lot lately. It's about state-proof your family. And I thought that was very appropriate. I've been seeing how people have been actually taking responsibility for their own community. For instance, you know, we hire private security companies to help us if there's a burglar. We can't rely on the police. If there's a pothole in the road, I mean, it doesn't matter how many letters you've sent to the municipality, they don't have money to fix it. So people are now getting together, getting organized, fixing the pothole. People are even getting hold of the town sewage system and working there because infrastructure is crumbling. And, you know, I think, I mean, we're not even talking about ESCOM, okay? I mean, it's just,
we want to have a happy
doesn't go in there. So, you know, we've got such I would say pioneering spirit, but I suppose we could say the people in our country are very practical. We're very reasonable people, and we take what's, you know, we're starting to wake up that we can't trust government for everything. And I'm thinking, if we take all that trouble with our infrastructure and with our providing power in our house, shouldn't we take more with you know, our children's education? Yet we do all these things, but when it comes to our children's education, no, we have to now, you know, toe the line. And even though the government, the DBE has been failing, and we've been waiting for so long for this, and that's not happening, and we still look to them. And we need to take responsibility for our own children, because if your child fails at school, or if your child doesn't finish school, people don't look at the DBE and say why. They look at the parent, and that it's your responsibility. You're the one who's got to stand up and reply for what's happened to your child. So I think people must start thinking that way. And they must come up with solutions for their children, because the DBE is not supplying them, and they need to realize that. And I think a lot of schools are doing that when they have the school governing boards where the parents have taken over. Schools are doing really well. You know, the parents are investing in the schools. They're standing up and saying, we're going to help. And I think with home education, that's also something that people should do, especially because financially nowadays, everybody's struggling. And you may not be able to afford private schools or online schooling sometimes, even because especially the CAPS curriculums online can be quite expensive from a private provider. So there are so many options, and parents must just get out of that fear that they're doing something wrong, and they must realize this child is my responsibility. They must just mom up or dad up and do what we do. You know, we fight for our children, and we need to fight for their education too. So take courage, and you're not the only one. I mean, there are so many parents who are doing this already. I think a big challenge is sometimes when parents choose to take that step, they get a lot of flack from friends and family. But I think they just need to be educated, especially if you see how many parents have put their children through home education. The children are flourishing. It's such a viable opportunity, and it's so sad that people don't take it out of fear.
I think that one of the issues is that for so long, parents have seen either their own lives, you know, it's school. That's the option that they've had, and we've kind of handed that responsibility over and have bought into the mindset that education can only be done by those that have got a 5-year teaching degree. And there is a sort of self-doubt before moms even start. And then obviously, you know, we realize the responsibility is huge. And as we're going along, there's worries and that sort of thing. Shirley and I spend a lot of time in our videos talking about how to allay those worries. But I think that if we looked at what the most precious thing that we have is our children, you know, there's some people that won't even allow a domestic worker to come in and clean their home because their home is a treasure and they don't want their things broken. And yet the children, who are the true treasure of a husband and a wife, are handed over so quickly and so glibly to a system where for 8 hours of the day, you have no idea what is being fed into their thought process and how their worldview is being shaped, let alone the bullying and, you know, all those sort of things that go on at school. So to wrap up, what I'll say is I'm going to put down a whole lot of links in the comment section for parents who watch this that would like to look more. There's videos out there. There are organizations that you can join. Shirley's written a few articles on our website. But anything else that you'd like to add, Shirani or Shirley, before we close off?
Shirley, how about you?
I think if you look on the DBE's website, there is a slogan that is very telling. It says something like, children are our national asset. And they're treating all children the same. The CAPS curriculum that gets delivered in the school system is a one-size-fits-all. It's even the same curriculum in the private schools. As one homeschooling dad said, private schools are just public schools on steroids because you get the same curriculum, you know. So there's no diversity. And I think that's a threat to our country in general, in that we're just limited to what the DBE decided everybody needs to learn. And so we need to realize that our children, if we don't want them to be treated as a one-size-fits-all, a national asset that's there to achieve the goals and the ideology of the ruling party, then, like Shirani said, we've got to man up and take a stand. But we need to empower ourselves to do that. So I think that's the bottom line for me, is get informed so that you can make informed choices and become more confident.
Definitely. Yes, I think just to add to that, we need to realize that we can't outsource our responsibility towards our children. They are our responsibility. And we really need to, it's our job to make sure that the people who are educating them for the right reasons in the right way, and that it will enrich their lives and will give them a good start to their future. And if not, we need to make a plan. We can't just sit back and just watch it happen. It's like watching it. You can see an accident coming and just standing there. We have to get involved. And we're not alone. Like Wendy said, we have people like the Pestalozzi Trust who are passionate about our children and homeschooling our children. I mean, the people there, the team there work so hard. And even though they're inundated with calls, they try and make time for everybody. And they're not making money out of it. They're not pushing any agenda. They are just there to help parents because they are homeschooling parents. They've been through it. So I need people to just understand there is another way. Just be brave enough to take that first step and talk to other people who've been down that road and look at the fruit. You know, you don't have to go in there blindly just hoping it will work out. You can talk to people who've been through it and see the evidence for it. And it's quite a rational decision to make. It's not something that is impossible or airy-fairy unicorn rainbow type of thing. I mean, my children, I don't have a teaching degree. 3 of my children have been accepted to universities in America, and we didn't follow CAPS. I actually think the fact that we didn't gave them an advantage because of the low standard of CAPS. And I mean, they ranked 3rd worst in the world for maths and science again last year. So we really need to just wake up, get informed, and make a plan.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really hope that this isn't been a fear-based thing for parents, that they understand that we've been there, done that, we've got through, our kids are fine, and yeah, to take to heart what Shirley has said, empower yourself with knowledge. So thank you both, and have a lovely day further.